First stop, Griffith Observatory. If you've ever found yourself dreamily waltzing through the streets of LA to the tune of City of Stars, you're definitely not alone. Remember that dance scene in La La Land? This is where the magic happened. That little number from La La Land made us all want to twirl our way up to the iconic Griffith Observatory and profess our love under the cosmic nightscape. But let's be real, trying to recreate that scene is a slippery slope. Literally, this landmark sits perched atop Mount Hollywood. So unless your dance partner is willing to risk tumbling down the hills of Griffith Park, you might want to just admire the views from the safety of the grounds. Speaking of admiring, Griffith has been the eye-catching co-star of countless movies and shows over the decades. From the original Rebel Without a Cause in 1955 to the more recent La La Land in 2016. This Art Deco marvel has basically been an A-lister longer than most A-listers. But don't just come for the starry-eyed looks. Griffith rolls out the red carpet to celestial celebrities too, with their impressive array of telescopes and exhibits. The piece de resistance? The iconic Zeiss telescope that lets you go all NASA and scout those twinkling stars in the sky. Next up, the Hollywood sign. This iconic landmark appears a little different than it does now in the climax of Argo. The film showed representation of the sign before it was restored in 1978. Though the movie isn't completely historically accurate since Argo takes place in 1980, after the Hollywood sign had been restored. The Hollywood sign has been a dramatic backdrop to several films over the years, and now through those films you can see how the sign has evolved. This behemoth of letter forms wasn't always meant for its current claim to fame though. Back in 1923, it was just a giant billboard sign shouting Hollywoodland to advertise a new housing development. Clearly someone missed the memo that subtlety isn't exactly this town's strong suit. Thank goodness they did eventually drop the land, because having that extra real estate shout out seems a bit excessive, even for LA. Though the sign has grabbed its fair share of headlines over the decades, from renegade pranks to extreme makeover restorations. Its most recent facelift was in 2012 for its 90th birthday bash, because what's 9 decades in this city without a little Botox and fresh coat of paint? Run, Forrest, run! The Santa Monica Pier is where Forrest Gump's epic cross-country run comes to an end. This weathered old pier has been parked at the foot of Colorado Avenue since way back in 1909, practically qualifying it as an antique by LA standards. And much like a cherished family heirloom, it's gone through its fair share of facelifts and touch-ups over the decades that keep that youthful amusement park glow. These days, the pier is an iconic playground that delights kids of all ages. There's the Pacific Park, an old-school carnival with a Ferris wheel that's decked out in more solar panels than a Stanford solar car. Terrifying? Maybe. On brand for perpetually sun-drenched Santa Monica? You betcha. Who could forget Julia Roberts' shopping spree in Pretty Woman? Rodeo Drive is the ultimate shopping destination. This 2-mile stretch of prime real estate is the holy grail for any label-obsessed fashionista, from Gucci to Cartier. Every storefront reads like a roll call of your credit card's most flagrant nightmares. Window shopping here requires a strong constitution and potentially a therapist on speed dial. Venice Beach is not just for sun and surf. It was the backdrop for the intense basketball scene in American History X. The basketball courts of Venice Beach saw the brutal reality of gang violence in American History X, but for the most part, this free-spirited seaside borough has been a bohemian playground for the artists, vagabonds, and eccentrics of all stripes for over a century. Strolling the boardwalk is a bit like taking a Vegas alternative universe tour. One minute you're watching a guy swallowing swords, the next you're being offered mystical crystal healing and aura readings. And just when you think you've peaked in weirdness, bam! There's about 16 cats inexplicably skateboarding in perfect unison. It's a beautiful acid trip without the drugs. Union Station's stunning architecture was featured in Blade Runner. It's a must-see for sci-fi fans. The futuristic noir world of Blade Runner came alive in the stunning interiors of Union Station. This iconic Los Angeles landmark oozes old-school Hollywood glamour from every curve and detail. The ravishing train terminal was destined for the spotlight from the start, with its unique architectural blend of Art Deco, Mission Revival, and streamlined modern styles. It's like Greta Garbo, Frida Kahlo, and super sleek locomotive all decided to combine their looks into one fabulous love child of a building. Films like Blade Runner, Catch Me If You Can, and Pearl Harbor all capture a bit of its beauty. Speaking of Blade Runner, the Bradbury building served as J.F. Sebastian's apartment. Its unique design is unforgettable. The Bradbury building is essentially the cool, goth-leaning cousin that your staid office tower relatives wished they could be. This ornate, Victorian-era masterwork has been lording over the DTLA Broadway corridor with a delicious mix of architectural tudes since way back in 1893. From the street, it may not seem like much, just another vintage brick facade in a city brimming with beautiful old buildings. But step through those doors and it's like you've stumbled onto the set of a wildly ambitious steampunk period piece. No surprise this romantic relic has basically become Hollywood's most coveted background talent. From sci-fi mindbenders like Blade Runner to stylish noirs like The Artist, the Bradbury's striking interior has upstaged many a leading actor with its sheer photogenic bravura. Let's take a stroll down the Hollywood Walk of Fame, just like Whitney Houston and Kevin Costner did in The Bodyguard. Whitney Houston's iconic strut was filmed on this 1.3-mile monument to pop culture prestige. It spans across Hollywood Boulevard and Vine Street, originating as a self-guided tour in 1958. This starry sidewalk quickly morphed into a competition for shiny pavement prestige. Remember the adrenaline-pumping chase scene in Terminator 2? It was filmed right here at the LA River. The LA River, a 51-mile channelized stretch that once served as a merely functional storm drain, hosted the road rage truck chase from Terminator 2 Judgment Day. The movies discovered its harsh, industrial aesthetic and gritty charisma, and suddenly, it was the chase scene co-star that could. From edge-of-your-seat pursuits in Terminator 2 and Grease, to backlot backdrops on Breaking Bad, the LA River's harsh, elemental set dressing has thrilled audiences for decades. Who needs lavish set designs when you've got miles of raw, weathered channel reaches begging for a climactic throwdown? Last but not least, the Walt Disney Concert Hall. Robert Downey Jr. brought the Stark Expo to life in Iron Man. Walt Disney Concert Hall is essentially the shining vibranium-esque jewel in the crown of downtown LA's cultural renaissance. This audacious architectural feat looks like it crash-landed directly from the lookbook of some ethereal intergalactic civilization. Let's start with the obvious. Those sublime, undulating walls of radiant stainless steel that seem to defy both gravity and conventional good taste, dreamed up by the delightfully unhinged mind of Frank Gehry. Disney Hall's avant-garde exterior is a mind-bending optical illusion cloaked in cutting-edge origami chic. And there you have it, 10 iconic movie locations in Los Angeles. Which one is your favorite? Let us know in the comments below. If you want to keep exploring, be sure to check out our video on every iconic movie location in New York revealed in 10 minutes or less. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more iconic movie locations.